more to marketing. Welcome to More to Marketing, the podcast on marketing, product, and everything business. I'm your host, Susan Walsh, and today we're going to be exploring a fundamental aspect of business management, budgeting. We're going to go through some of the essential elements and just really clarify some of those key concepts as well, just to make sure that you have everything covered for your budgeting needs, but also looking at if there's anything new trending in budgeting landscapes. So I think it's really important to understand how important budgets are to forming a true backbone for a business's financial plan. Now, there's a few things that come into budgets, but there's not just one budget. There's all these different budgets. So you've got your operating budget. That outlines the costs of the projected revenue and expenses over a specific period. And it also serves as a bit of a roadmap for daily operations. Things that include like your sales forecasting, cost of goods sold, operating expenses, all those pieces go in there. Another key budget to keep on top of is your cash flow budget. It ensures the liquidity of your business. The budget predicts the cash flow in and out and helps you to be able to plan for any potential shortfalls so it doesn't happen. Capital expenditure budget is also one that can be very important for some types of businesses. It's about when you have to budget for significant investments in assets. So think machinery, technology, infrastructure, all those things, the ones that really have those long-term growth opportunities that go with them. Of course, marketing budget, allocating funds for those promotional activities like advertising and PR to drive sales and brand awareness. And then you cannot forget your project budget. They're the costs associated with specific projects that you're trying to do either as a product or a service for your business. But you have to ensure that they are completed within your financial constraints so that you budget for them. Now, while these budgets are really critical, there are several commonly overlooked budgets that can sometimes catch people off guard. So let's talk through those ones. One of the ones that some companies don't look at enough would be employee turnover costs. So that's all the expenses that relates to either recruitment, training, or the loss of productivity when an employee does leave. Now, another one would be maintenance and repairs, particularly if you haven't budgeted for any machinery or equipment to actually need fixing that's outside of warranty, perhaps that hasn't been planned for. Software and technology updates and upgrades can definitely sneak up on businesses, particularly when they don't realize that eventually they will have to update their software. When you put in a program, it's not set and forget. There will be ongoing maintenance required to it and other bits and pieces. So you need to make sure that you have something set aside, that you're aware of it. Now, to create an effective budget, it's essential to understand and implement the following key aspects. So the first one is always going to be setting your goals. Have clear goals. Define what your business aims to achieve financially within that period. Accurately forecast. So where you can, don't guesstimate, estimate. So ensure that you estimate revenues and expenses based on both historical data and also market analysis, so you're not caught up with surprise. Regular monitoring as well, so making those adjustments when required, because you need to continuously compare your actual performance against the budget and make adjustments where required. Flexibility also is needed to allow for any adjustments for these unforeseen changes in the business environment. It's also good to stay informed about different types of trends that might be happening in budgeting land, particularly if it might be something that is good for your business type. So there's definitely one out there called zero-based budgeting. Now, this approach requires all expenses to be justified for each new period, promoting cost efficiency. Another one is conditional budgeting, designed for businesses with those fluctuating incomes. This method allows for adaptable and adaptive financial planning. And a third one we will touch on is the integrated business planning. This combines all aspects of planning, forecasting, and budgeting to align operations with financial goals. But let's delve into these three new, might not be two new concepts, but you may not have heard of them. So if we think about the first one I mentioned there, zero-based budgeting, or ZBB, it is a financial planning method where pretty much every single expense must be justified for each period. So you're starting from a zero base, which is why it's called zero-based budgeting. Unlike traditional budgeting, which adjusts it does adjust to those previous budgets to account for new expenditures, the ZBB requires organizations to build their budgets from scratch annually, ensuring that all expenses are necessary and aligned with the current goals. Now, some of the key features are things like justification of expenses. So you really need to have every expense justified regardless of the previous budget. This process ensures that resources are allocated efficiently and in alignment with the organization's objectives. Now, because it's aligned with strategic goals, the ZBB encourages organizations to allocate funds based on current needs and prioritizations, promoting those strategic alignment and resource optimizations. Cost management, because of being the ZBB as it is, everything is scrutinized, all costs. So it really does help to identify and eliminate unnecessary costs, leading hopefully to a more efficient resource utilization. Now, if you're wanting to implement zero-based budgeting, one, you need to identify decision units. Divide the organization into decision units, such as departments or projects, each responsible for their own budget. Evaluate and justify expenses. So you need to analyze and justify all expenses for these decision units, ensuring that they are necessary and contribute to the goals. Third, prioritization of these expenses. So rank them. They need to be ranked. And based on their importance and alignment, again, go back to those strategic objectives to facilitate informed resource allocations. Then you're going to be allocating resources. So distribute the funds according to the prioritization list, ensuring that essential and high impact activities receive the appropriate funding. And it's always important to monitor and review. So regularly assess the spending and outcome to ensure compliance with the budget and make adjustments, that flexibility again, as needed. Now, there are some advantages. So enhancing your resource allocation is a fantastic, definitely advantage for ZBB, because everyone's aligned to that goal and you shouldn't be going off chasing other things. There is the element of cost reduction, so you are focusing on eliminating waste and unnecessary expenditures. And it should increase operational efficiency because you're regularly evaluating what's being done so that you make sure all the operations and resources are being utilized the way they need to be. Of course, there's going to be disadvantages. This is time consuming. ZBB is not for the faint-hearted. It is time consuming. The process is very labor intensive. It requires detailed analysis and justification for those expenses. It's resource intensive. So it does mean you need additional staff and training, and it may have increased operational costs when you're trying to implement the ZBB in place. And it could potentially have some managerial bias as well. Managers might present non-essential projects as essential to secure funding, leading to resource misalignment. Now, ZBB is also applicable to everyday life as well. You can do that from everyday calculations, etc., like that. But really, when it comes to a business, it's a comprehensive approach to financial planning that requires thorough justification of all expenses. And it really does promote efficiency of those allocations of resources and alignment with the current objectives, which are all positive. But it does take a lot of time. So ZBB, you need to really weigh up if it's worth it or not. But scrutinizing costs and going back and questioning if they're right and they're aligned is positive if you're trying to actually make sure everything is working how it needs to be. Now, the second one we talked briefly about was conditional budgeting. Conditional budgeting is financial planning approaches that allocates resources based on specific conditions or events, allowing organizations to be more adaptive to that uncertainty or have to prioritize expenses more effectively during periods. This method is particularly beneficial for entities with fluctuating incomes, high fixed costs, or operating in a very volatile environment. Key features of conditional budgeting. So, prioritization of expenses, and you have to recognize that not all the items are going to hold equal importance. So, you really got to define spending priorities and allocate funds. Flexibility and adaptability, of course, are a must. The organization needs to be prepared to adjust their budgets and actually respond to changes in circumstances, which could be economic shifts or even unexpected events. Risk management is very important in this type of budget because you have to incorporate strategies to mitigate potential risks, ensuring the financial stability even in uncertain times. Now, if you're going to consider implementing conditional budgeting, there are a few things that you should definitely consider, which is things like identify potential risks and uncertainties so that you can factor that in and what the impact of the budget could be, natural disasters, political instability, economic fluctuations, all that kind of stuff. 2, analyze the likelihood of it and also the impact. What's the probability? What's the potential effect of this risk? Understand it and understand its significance. Develop contingency plans if you can. Create alternative financial plans to address various scenarios to ensure readiness for all those different outcomes. Allocate resources based on those priorities. So distribute the funds that make sense under those conditions, and always monitor and adjust. So continually review financial performance and make necessary adjustments to the budget. Now, there are advantages to conditional budgeting. Now, it enhances transparency. So it provides clear insights into how the funds are allocated based on specific conditions and improves the accountability. You improve your decision making. So enables informed financial decisions by considering potential risks and prioritizing essential expenditures. Increases operational resilience. So it equips organizations to better withstand uncertainties and adapt to changes in the environment. Now, there's always going to be things to consider, particularly for this one, and it is all about those instabilities out there and being more flexible. And that's going to be the complexities. So how complex it is to do this versus traditional. And also, it's probably a bit resource intensive at some points as well, particularly doing out those risk plans and the contingency plans. But overall, a conditional budgeting is a strategic approach that enables organizations to allocate resources effectively amid uncertainty by prioritizing expenditures and preparing for various scenarios. While it may be more effort to implement, I think there's some businesses that need to plan like this, particularly if they're relying, for example, on tenders and things like that. What do they do if they don't win that tender? What happens to that manufacturing plant? All those kind of things. So it really helps you to be identify those, and you get benefits in the flexibility, improving your risk management and decision making as well to make the business more financially stable and successful. Now, the last one we're going to talk about is the integrated business planning, or IBP. And this one here is a holistic approach. It aligns an organization's strategic, operational, and financial plans. So it's a one-stop shop almost. By integrating these various functions, like the function area we're talking about here is like sales, marketing, finance, supply chain, human resources. The IBP facilitates informed decision making and ensures that all departments work towards common business objectives. Now, one of the key components to this one is a strategic alignment. So it really does make sure that all the different departments are aligned towards those strategic goals, which helps to maintain and identify direction across the company. 2, Cross-functional collaboration. So with this, you have to hope that it promotes collaboration among those various departments to create a cohesive plan that actually reflects the needs and capabilities of the organization. Data integrity. By consolidating the data from all these different sources to provide a single accurate view of the business, this is essential for effective planning and decision making. You can also do scenario planning as well. So you can develop and analyze various scenarios to anticipate potential challenges and opportunities, and enabling the organization to respond proactively. It also enables performance management, so KPIs. You're able to actually establish true key performance indicators for all the business to follow together and be part of together by monitoring the progress and ensure the organization stays on track to meet its goals. Now, there's a few different ways that you can implement an integrated business plan. And they're things like assess the current processes. That would be step one. So evaluate existing planning processes to identify gaps and areas of improvement. You need to understand the current state, and it's crucial to be effective in the implementation. Define objectives and requirements to clearly articulate the goals. What is the IBP trying to do? What's its initiatives? And determine the capabilities and resources required. Engage all those departments that we've already spoken about. So there is that collaboration. We are fostering that cross-functional participation. Establish those KPIs, those common performance indicators that go across all units. Leverage technology as much as you can. Analyze the appropriate tools and software to support what you're trying to do, and make sure that it works in real time as much as possible. Pilot and refine if you need to, and don't be afraid of feedback. Ensure that's part of the loop so that it continues to grow, and you might have to scale this out as well. And always have opportunity for continuous improvement, because that's how you get success in the long term. Now, there are benefits to the IBP. So you've got that enhanced decision-making view, because you can see all departments, everyone should be aligned to a certain degree and unified. And that makes everyone more informed. So you should have more timely decisions made too. And that will help to improve the agility of the business as well. So they should be able to respond more swiftly to changes in the market, particularly if there's any disruptions, or also just to even keep their competitive advantage. Increasing efficiency. So streamlining the processes and better resource alignment helps with that cost saving, operational cost saving as well. Goals. Having everyone aligned reduces conflict, and again, collaboration. So by implementing an integrated business plan, a strategic initiative, it really can make a difference. By bringing everyone together, you're going to be having a lot more commitment and collaboration, alignment on those goals, potentially leveraging technology across the business. You've got one source of truth. Companies can really achieve greater cohesion in operations and drive a sustainable success. Now, it might sound a bit silly about why is this an actual plan when businesses should be doing it. A lot of them aren't. And that's where an integrated business plan may be something to consider, because really, does every area understand the ultimate goals of the business? Do they all roll up? Do they roll down? How does it work? Start asking questions. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast on budgeting, and particularly efficient budgeting. It's more than just number crunching. To be effective and efficient, it's a strategic tool that guides businesses towards their financial objectives. By fostering on essential budgeting, accounting for ones that may be overlooked, adhering to key budgeting principles, and staying abreast of those emerging different types of budgeting and ways to use budgets, businesses can navigate their financial landscape with more confidence. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast from More to Marketing. Don't forget to follow and leave a review, and I'll see you next time. More to Marketing.